The name of the podcast is Dream Plan Execute, where I highlight individuals who dream frictionless, plan thoroughly, execute relentlessly. And Ritchie Nkana, you are definitely one of those persons.
Just like I think most kids, I don't think I was really sure exactly what I wanted to do. I ended up being in finance, studying accounting, and going into banking. Yes, money was good, so like reaching the bank, but emotionally bankrupt. I was actually scared and depressed. And that's how I sort of like shifted. I need to look for a solution here. And that's when I went studying for PT, metabolic conditioning, sports nutrition, just to help me. So I started writing playbooks for each one of those 4 areas. They go like, oh, can you share your playbooks with me? So I ended up recording some loops on the back of it. So that's how Operators Edge was actually born, from those playbooks. They were never meant to be shared, really. And with that, the framework we use is what we refer to as prime. It's about priming your body to show up. The P in there is all about physiology. Then the R is about recovery. Then the I is all about input. The M is all about mental conditioning in prime. And the E in prime is all about our environment. So architect is all about the vision. An architect actually builds a skyscraper before even a single brick is actually laid in their mind. And that's clarity, right? I use a framework called CAST framework. Then the A is all about alignment. Then the S is all about stories. The T in CAST is about trajectory. Builder is all about systems, right? If you don't have systems, you become the system. I use the DARE framework. So the D is all about designing. Then the A is all about automation. And the R in DARE is all about refinement. And the E in the builder is all about execution. The leader, pretty much, I think the glue that holds everything together. I use the core framework. C is all about the connections you have. The O is about openness. Then the R in core is all about responsibility. And the E is all about the energy exchange. And this is very, very powerful for me. So the thing I found is more about having those personal systems. There's so much focus on the hacks, the tools, the strategies, but we neglect the very operator behind it all.
Ritchie, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, Ramon. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Honestly, thank you for coming on the podcast, Richie. The name of the podcast is Dream Plan Execute, where I highlight individuals who dream frictionless, plan thoroughly, execute relentlessly. And Richie Nkana, you are definitely one of those persons. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the pod for all the work that you've done in finance, and then also helping individuals with their not just their personal finance, but also their health and fitness. And I love the program you have with Operators Edge. But before we get into all of what you're doing now, I want to go all the way back to when you just started life, and what was your first passion in life, and what you learned from that first passion to get you to this point.
I love that. I really appreciate you having me, by the way. Just start off with that. Yeah, I think, just like I think most kids, I don't think I was really sure exactly what I wanted to
Hmm.
do.
Okay.
I think I only got to realize later down the line that most of the direction I took initially was more extrinsically motivated
Mm.
as opposed to aligning with my purpose. I think, which is okay. I think when we're young, we're just trying to figure out exactly which direction we want to take. And for me at that moment in time, I think I had family and finance. That seemed pretty good.
Okay.
Obviously, I think for different reasons, I think money was good.
Yeah. Right.
So I think it kind of gravitated towards that direction. I ended up being, being in finance, studying accounting, business accounting, and going into banking.
Mm.
Yes, that's how I got started. So that was the starting point to my career, so as to speak, in studies. But as far as in the case of did I know exactly what I wanted to do, I think it was pretty much more drifting.
Gotcha. And
Yeah.
listen, I think drifting is one of those things that gives you a gamut of ideas and experience that you kind of get a chance to hone in on what I consider and what I've learned over the past time that I've been on this earth. Yeah, Ikigai. So I came across the framework Ikigai very later on in my life, but if I knew about it earlier, it kind of gives you an idea of what you are doing, right? Because it's like your
Absolutely.
Ikigai is four circles, right? What you're good at, what you love doing, what the world needs, and what people pay you for, right? And you can't figure that out at 15 or 14. You
Correct.
have to drift around a bit to kind of get to that sweet spot of what your life's purpose is. And I think for a range of people, it's a different experience. Someone like Messi or LeBron just automatically kind of honed in on their Ikigai early on in their life. And we probably think their sport is their Ikigai, but it could just be their profession. Maybe they have a different passion or a different thing that they want to do, and this just happened to be something they're good at. So I think drifting is important, and then also accomplishing your in your drifting is also tying in your focus on what you really want to accomplish, but you kind of have to drift around to kind of know what that is. So
Absolutely.
did you play any sports in college or high school, or was sports something that you were interested in?
Yeah, I played a little bit of sport. I played a bit of basketball, and I think I just love what you just how you framed it there. In the case of finding your ikigai, you're finding your passion, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the beauty about it. And that's what I encourage kids as well to try out different things. Like I tried, yeah, in the case of like sport, I tried out basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I tried out playing football, soccer, but I was not that great at it. At it, right? So it's about trying. So I guess it's about finding that passion because I think passion. One thing I realize is thrown around too much. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like this buzzword.
Right.
And I remember growing up being told follow your passion, but as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 18-year-old, you might
Right.
not really, you won't really have an idea of your passion. Because I believe passion is something that you have to have a feel of,
Mm.
have a taste of. Then pretty much you go like, right, okay, this is my passion.
Right.
It's not in the head space, it's in the heart space. I could just give an example. I was talking to young people very not very long ago. It's about you need to test out things. You need to try new things because that's the only way you can tell what is your passion.
Right.
Think about it like in the case of you're in a room, you see a beautiful girl across the room, we go like, oh, she's going to be my wife, right? She might as well be your wife at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? But at that moment in time, it's purely just infatuation because it's just based on what you see. There is steps that lead to that. There is the
Right.
courting. You get to know the person. You have the right fit. Then it goes from the head to the heart. And that is passion. I think it's same with when it comes to career paths that we have to take as well. Is it how do we figure it out? It's all about right, trying things, right? Is this right for me? Then you feel you find your passion. Talk about messy, right? But then maybe you have to figure it out. And that is good. If you can
Yeah.
find your passion early enough,
Early
then you
enough.
can
Yeah.
invest all that time and the energy into that particular direction.
Right. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. And
Mm.
a lot of the times for me, my initial sport that I played was tennis. I was a short, fat kid, and my mom was the person who bought me a tennis racket first. I had no intention of playing tennis. She paid for the class and brought the racket to me and it's like, here. And at first I fought her on it. I was like, I don't want to play this. I actually want to do something else. And she's like, I already paid for the class, so you're gonna go, right? And so eventually I went there, couldn't get to any of the balls, couldn't hit any of the balls at all. Right? Everyone's laughing. This kid trying to play tennis, he's trunky on the trunkier side, can't get to the balls, right? And I
Right.
just kept showing up. I kept showing up. I kept trying. And eventually, the challenge of not being able to get to the ball, I eventually get to the ball because now I'm losing weight. And what was a disadvantage being on the heavier side became an advantage now because I had a lot of force behind my shots. So I could push people
Totally.
off the court. And now everyone's perception kind of changes now because it moves from, oh, he can't get to the ball. Like, no, he's getting to the ball and he's rocking it across the court, right? Eventually, I
Amazing.
became captain of the tennis team, one regional, one nationals, and then got the principal awards leaving in Jamaica. Similar to England too, we
Yeah.
follow the high school starts right after sixth grade, right? There's primary
Exactly.
and second. There's no middle school, right? And so going into high school, I learned a tremendous lesson from that. That I became very passionate about something that I wasn't initially passionate about, right? And so giving it a try, like you said, giving it
I love it.
a turn of events. Like initially, my objection was I didn't even care about the sport to becoming super passionate about it and possibly wanting to be a professional tennis player. So I love that you said that, like, you got to try things. You got to, open your mind up to operating in a space where you're uncomfortable, where you are not
Totally.
really good at something. And anything that you're going to start that's great, you're going to tremendously suck at it first before you become really good at it.
Exactly. And I love how you put it there because there's two parts to it there. Yes, in the case of being ready, but the power of persistence as well, how it actually pays off.
Yeah, no, that's big. And
Yeah.
so for you, so you started in finance, you saw people in your family in finance. You tinkered in there for some time. You worked at BNY as an analyst, and then you went on to different financial firms being a financial manager. At what point you're like, okay, I'm in this role as a finance guy. I'm making good money. Everyone's going to think this is what you're going to do. This is what you want to do, and
Yeah.
something gets brought out of you in this moment that this is not exactly quite aligning with my ikigai. Kind of walk us through that moment where you realize you want to do something else.
Yeah, that is quite interesting because let's say change
Hmm.
happens two ways, right?
Yeah.
It could be either through inspiration or desperation. And for me, it was definitely desperation.
Mm.
So looking back then, what I had was right, okay, I'm going to be in the finance lane. But looking in the mirror, I didn't like what I see,
Mm.
right? And by not liking what I see, it wasn't so much about the aesthetics. Yes, money was good. So like reaching the bank, but emotionally bankrupt, right? Looking in the mirror, I don't like what I see. Not so much about the aesthetics. Yes, I'd put on quite a few pounds at that moment in time,
Yeah.
but I did not like the way I showed up for my loved ones. I
Mm.
did not like the way I showed up for my employers. And Ramon, I was actually scared and depressed
Mm.
because I got health conditions already in my family. And that rate that I was going, things were not looking good. And that's how I sort of like shift. I need to look for a solution here.
Mm.
And as we all should, I did seek help. I looked out for personal trainers to try and help me get in better shape because at that time I was really focused on just getting in better shape. But the solution that I was getting from the personal trainer was just no right for me because, I was in this busy environment in the banking environment, and I only had a very small window, and it meant me working around the personal trainer's time, which did not work. So I
Right.
had to find an alternative, and so I went back to a drawing board, and that's when I went studying for. I looked at PT, metabolic conditioning, sports nutrition, just to help me. It was never really for me to coach or teach this stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So what was so interesting about this? I enjoyed the stuff and ended up getting certified in those spaces, and with that, the transformation came about. And it was through that I had family, colleagues, friends ask me, "How you doing?" And it's like when I told them I'm only working out 3 times a week, 20 minutes at a time, it goes like, "No way! Can you show me how to do it?"
Mm.
So that's how the fitness bit started, and I started sort of like putting programs together. It was never really meant to be a business. So it's all about my mess, which has now been turned into my message.
Mm.
And that was just on the fitness side of things. Then it kind of evolved from then on. Operator's Edge came much later, but that's a different story.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I would love to get into operator's edge, but I want to dig
Hmm.
in on the fitness side of things.
Yeah.
So at some point you recognize that you're making a lot of money or making substantial gain somewhere else and you're losing gain somewhere else and balancing. I mean, I feel it for the high performers like yourself because there's you've built up such a high level skill somewhere else, and for all the persons I've spoke to, the balancing act of balancing this high performance skill set in this specific area, which would have been in finance, but everything else kind of just goes to the wayside. Um, when was that moment you realized, like, okay, I need to get this in shape? Was it like a doctor's visit? Was it just like you looked in the mirror and you're like, enough is enough. I want to get this done. When was that moment for you?
It's actually a combination. And you're
Mm.
right, because on paper, look at me like a successful banker,
Yeah.
right? Big team, big numbers, even bigger goals.
Right.
But guess what? My body breaking down, my energy tanking by 2 p.m.,
Mm.
right? My relationship on autopilot.
Right.
I've got living on caffeine, dopamine, adrenaline, and damage control.
Right.
Right. And when I realized at that moment in time, right, you cannot run a high performance business from a
Mm.
low performance life. And that was a realization for me that I had to make a shift.
Mm. Gotcha.
Right.
And in that shift is how you figured out operator's edge. And I love your philosophy of operator's edge and the four pillars. I went through it and I was like the operator, right? And you can't execute without the energy. And anyone would tell you this. Like when you're sick, the only thing that's a goal is not being sick, right?
Oh, yeah.
No matter what you have going on. I was reading at some point the great Alexander the Great is great because of two things. One, obviously he came into a great military organization because his dad was a captain or a general, right? So he already had a team. But most people don't realize that the person who Alexander grew up with also was Aristotle, which was one of the greatest philosophers, right?
Amazing.
Right. And imagine having him as a coach, right? Of course, you're going to be Alexander the Great. But a lot of the letters that Aristotle wrote to Alexander when Alexander was at war wasn't about organizing the military, it wasn't about how to structure your framework. It was about burnout and it was about making sure you stay healthy. He's like, don't drink any water that it's pooled in that area for too long. Like he's remember to like stuff that your parents would tell you. He's like, remember to brush your teeth. Remember to keep your
Exactly.
like because all these things are going to affect your decision making. You're not going to be a
Yeah.
military general and make sharp decisions if you have cavities. You're not going to make sharp
Totally. Yeah.
decisions if you're sick. Like you're going to lose your edge. You're going to lose your decision making. And so I love that you're like, okay, let's start from the beginning. Before you need to get your energy focused and deliverable. Like you need to fix that. Then the architect. Once you got that figured out, now you can deal with your vision. Then you can start building systems to scale. And then from there you can lead through holding relationships and managing that. So kind of walk us through because this
Totally.
is an amazing framework of how did you go about like putting this framework together and like what influenced it along the way?
Yeah, actually, that's a very good question because Operator's Edge was very organic. It's actually funny
Mm,
how it came about. Because in my case, I was focused more on fitness at that time.
gotcha.
I thought fitness was my saving grace, and it was my saving grace because I think energy drives execution, as we talked about right there. But over the years, I was, I think, privileged to have been able to coach like business leaders, some like running Fortune 500 business companies, right? And what was so eye opening, they came to me for fitness,
Hmm.
but it was quite interesting. I got to learn a few things there. Right. On paper, very successful, big numbers, right? You know, big income, big teams, and all that.
Right.
But they came to me for fitness. But when we got to the bottom of it, you find some actually were burned out. Not so much
Hmm.
about maybe the physicality. Yes, maybe that added a little bit more to it. But they just did not even have the right systems so they can scale without burning out. It's just about that scaling. How is it you can scale without burning out? Again, upgrading the operator, personal systems.
Right.
They're physically at home but not present, right? Relationships are actually failing. And that was quite telling for me because I had been in that particular scenario myself. And I thought that was just me that was having those issues.
Mm.
And with me, it was more about yes, the income was rising, the fitness was right there, but I saw some gaps in a lot of, as I said, fitness showed some cracks
Right.
in my lifestyle. And to fix that, what I did is started writing playbooks. So I started writing playbooks for each one of those four areas. Pretty much, it was more about energy systems, how my vision. Then I looked about personal systems, how I can actually build personal systems. And I look at how is it I can bridge this gap on the relationships as well,
Mm.
right? So I wrote playbooks and it came to about 8 playbooks that I put together. So in coaching, with this business leader, so I remember like speaking to one, and you get to know them, and it comes out that those gaps as well. In the case of one, it could be systems, it could be relationships at home,
Yeah.
and I just part of the conversation was, have you tried writing playbooks? Because for me, that's something I did, and I thought it was just something that they could actually think about maybe doing themselves. They go like, no, playbooks. I never thought about it.
Yeah. Most
How
people.
does that work?
Yeah.
But then I realized I build systems. I've been building systems for the last like 20 years and stuff like that. So that is my forte. That is my superpower.
Mm.
Um, they go like, oh, can you share your playbooks with me? At first, I was very hesitant because those playbooks were pretty much my personal playbooks, personal
Mm.
frameworks. But when I look back at it, I was like, actually, get to think about it. These playbooks are frameworks. So if it can work for me, they can work for somebody else. I'll just
Yeah.
share them and I have a look at it. So one of my clients, I shared those playbooks and he looked at me and goes, it was just like literally like about half an hour later, go to go to call. So Richie, these are so good. Can you expand on these? Can you expand on this? I was like, oh, that's quite interesting. So I ended up recording some looms on the back of it
Mm.
just to expand on it, because initially those were my own playbooks, so they were pretty much light touch that I can pick up right on a weekly basis when I have that playback of a week. Where are my gaps? So is it my relationship? Is my energy systems? Is it my vision which is lacking this week? Then I can just plug that. So that's how it came about, and it was very interesting because it goes like, oh, can you expand on this? So that's how Operators Edge was actually born,
Mm.
from those playbooks. They were never meant to be shared, really, but that was the birth of it, because then I realized that I'm not the only one who's struggling with this issue.
Okay.
There's plenty of other business leaders out there who are struggling. And it's not so much about winning in one domain, because winning success is not just one dimensional, looking at it maybe just from a
Right.
financial perspective, or looking at it maybe just from the fitness perspective, right? Relationship perspective. It's about how you have a 360 kind of wins in all domains of life that actually matter. Is it health, wealth, and relationships? And that is Operator's Edge. So there's four pillars to it, right? And as you indicated, the very first one is all about energy, which is um, the operator, right? Because
Right.
energy drives execution. So we need to start with that. That's the foundation stone. And with that, the framework we use is what we refer to as prime, right? It's about priming your body to show
Mm.
up. And the very first one, the P in there, is all about physiology, right? Movement. Then the R is about recovery. We don't, I think, talk enough about recovery
We don't.
systems,
We do not.
because that's where the good stuff happens, right?
Yeah, you're 100% right. A lot of
Yeah.
we have a culture of go 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 and not take the time to recover. But yeah, continue. That's yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Then the I is all about input. Yeah. What is it that we input, we bring in our bodies
Mm.
in on a daily basis, right? Is it something that's going to elevate our energy? Are we aware of that? Because for the most part, we not have that awareness of actually what is it we inputting in our bodies. Is it elevating our energy, or is it dampening our energy?
Mm.
Right. So, like in my case, years ago, I would start my day with coffee, for instance, right?
Right.
And I wondered why by 10, 11 a.m., my energy is tanking,
Right.
right? Because I don't need coffee at that time. Now I start with water because I understand how the body actually works.
Right.
Things like that could be. Then the M is all about mental conditioning in prime. Mental conditioning. What do we start our day with? Again, guys, it could start with inputs. Are we starting with emails to start off with? Right? You start your day with emails, or you start reading newspapers with bad sort of like vibes that come out of it, and you
Yeah.
get to wonder why your energy is actually drained.
Mm.
So, what is it we are feeding our minds to start off with to prime our bodies so we actually show up as we should, right? And the E in prime is all about our environment. I think that is something that's not spoken of enough.
Mm.
environment, it could be the physical environment we in, it could be the people we hang around with.
Right.
Are they elevating us? Are they bringing energy to us, or are they bringing us down? Right. So that is all about prime in operator, in the operator. Operator is all about energy. But then there is, with that, there is plenty of systems we can go into. There's plenty of tools we can go into for each and every one of those levers, right? In how we can sort of like level up our energy on a daily basis and show up, right?
Yeah, I love
So
it. The priming the body for execution and having a framework. So there's like layers to your framework.
totally.
It's not just operator and then you'll go, okay, yeah, a lot of times, especially as an engineer, I love getting into the mechanics of how things are driven. And so, like, the way you broke that down shows like it's not just okay, prime the energy, the body with energy, like, but you're going into how you actually go about doing this. This is how you actually go about priming the body. It's the environment. It's what you input is, what your mental capacity. It's everything. It's not just the word, but how you go about your tangible day to day operations. So once you're primed, how do you get from the operator node to the architect framework? What's the mechanics behind the architect framework?
That's a good question. And I love it. You're an engineer. I love building systems. I've been building systems. So you would notice that everything I teach is about framework. So it's
Mm,
actually easier to ingest. And within those frameworks, there's plenty of tools as well, and templates and whatever it is that we actually use to actually apply so that they actually stick. Yes.
mm,
So architect is all about the vision, right? Architects don't just build, a building or a skyscraper. They actually envision it before it actually
mm.
comes to being. An architect actually builds a skyscraper before even a single brick is actually laid in their mind. And that's clarity, right? So with architects, right, in building that, we use what I teach is I use a framework called CAST framework,
Mm.
right? So with CAST, the C is all about clarity, right? Having clarity again is like, how is it that you can, we talked about just building and having clarity of exactly what you're executing,
Right.
right? For the most part, people make figure eights, right?
Right.
You're not clear exactly what you're doing and end up drifting. We're talking about drifting earlier,
Yeah.
right? How is it that, and you find you get to wonder why you're not making progress,
Mm.
be it in business, be it whatever it is, career wise. But are we clear on the are we clear on the direction we want to take,
Yeah.
right? You cannot just be throwing dots in the dark. You need to have a target because that way then it's actually laser focused, right?
Right.
Then the A is all about alignment, right? In CAST, and talk about in the architect's framework. Alignment is all about, are your goals and whatever you're doing, is it aligned with your purpose?
Mm.
That is key. I had one client I was working with, super lady. When you look at her resume, you look at what she's actually achieved, very successful, but unfulfilled.
Mm.
But when we go down to the bottom of it, right, the reason why she was unfulfilled is it went down to the fact that the purpose she was chasing, or all the things she was actually chasing, were not aligned with her purpose. She was pretty much going after her father's goals, her father's dreams,
Mm.
right? And the sad bit about it, her father had been gone 10 years, but she was still in this loop, right?
Right.
So alignment is key. What is it? Talk about, yes, we have the energy to execute, but yes, one, it has to have clarity of exactly what you're executing, right? But at the same time, is it aligned with our purpose? Are we pushing our purpose, or are we pushing somebody else's purpose?
Mm.
So alignment is key. Then the S in cast and architect is all about stories. There's plenty of times where, we don't progress. We have these limiting beliefs based on the stories we've had,
Mm.
stories that are holding us down, right? When I used to coach personal finances, there is this. thing I used to take my clients through called your money story, right? Things like we hear growing up, things like money does not grow on trees. You have
Right.
to have money to make money. It's just said almost innocently, and
Right.
we don't think much about it. But guess what? It gets ingrained. We take it in, and consciously, subconsciously, those are kind of limiting beliefs that actually we build up over time.
Mm-hmm.
So stories are all about awareness. Are we aware of the stories? Are the stories pushing us forward, or are the stories our shackles? Right. So that awareness is actually key. What stories are we holding on to?
Right.
What stories are we telling ourselves? And how do we rewrite those stories so we can take us to, which is actually the T in cast is about trajectory, right? We write that story so we can land in the direction we want to land, right? So that is all about the architect and alignment.
Yeah, the architect
Cast.
really speaks to me because one, I wanted to be an architect at one point in my life. I ended up in engineering, but I still work with a lot of
Yeah,
architects. And you're right, the architect is envisioning what the product is. I work as a construction manager, so by the time it gets to me, it's more or less executing the vision that's on paper, right? It's already clear what the design intent is. This is what we're trying to build. We're trying to build a two-story building. We're trying to build a skyscraper. This is what we want on each floor. It's very clearly aligned. And one of the reasons why I came up with the Dream Plan Execute framework was thinking through the building process that we do, where someone is dreaming, someone is coming up with a vision, and at some point that vision needs to come into a tangible uh, awareness, and that's what your plans are. So the owner is like, I want to build a building that's a residential building that has so and so floors and number of amenities for this amount of rent that I can charge at some later time in the future. But to get there, I need someone to plan it out for me. I know this is what I want, but I need a planner. You bring the architect in. The architect comes, okay, this is how
yep,
we're going to build it. And even the architect on his own can't do it. They need to go to the engineers at some point to
exactly.
clarify certain specific niche things that they have a general understanding of, but need a more detailed specialist to help them with, right? And that all that information makes its way onto the plan set, right? And then from there, a construction manager and their construction team go about executing the build of that architect's vision, which is really the owner's vision that the architect pulled out of the owner and put on paper. So I love the architect framework because it just aligns with a lot of things that are tangible, and I really like it for one of the reasons that that's what I drew from to make Dream Plan Execute, because we do this daily and it's someone's dreaming, someone's planning, someone's executing. And if you
I
don't do all
love it.
three, you can't get anything done. If you're executing without a vision, you're working on someone else's dream, right? If you want to do it for yourself, you have to dream and dream frictionless, dream without any sort of misgivings, no stories, like you would say, in your head that is going to limit you. Because if you have a frictionless dream, there's no limiting stories, right? Plan thoroughly, like you have here with the architect. Plan in a way that is thorough and clear and aligns with what you need to do. And at some point, you need to execute and execute like a dog to a bone. So I love where you're going with this. So we're gonna move into the next one, which is the builder. So tell me about the builder framework. I'm really excited about this.
Right. Yeah, I love it. I just loved how you just framed it in the case of like the architects. And the good part about the architects, you don't really have to build it yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about having that vision, clarity of vision. Yeah, yes, which leads us to the builder, right? Builder is all about systems, right? If you don't have systems, you become the system,
Mm-hmm.
right? And with that, with the builder, I use the DARE framework. I call it the DARE framework. So the D is all about designing.
Mm-hmm.
So designing, what do I talk about designing? Designing is design your day, design your hour, design your month, your week.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't design your day, you don't design your month, guess what? End up drifting. And you get to wonder why you keep on making those figure eights. I know people that go to the gym like 7 days a week, and but you don't see nothing as far as in the case of results, right? We all know people like that. Does it mean that they're not working hard? They're working hard, but maybe they're just not doing the right things. Again, it's all about how is it that you can design, have a program that will be effective.
Right.
How do you have a day that will be productive and aligned again with that trajectory you want to lead or aligned with your purpose,
Mm-hmm.
right? So designing, that's a D, right? Then
Yeah.
the A is all about automation. So automation, there's plenty of stuff that we do that is repetitive. So with my clients, what we work on, some of the frameworks we look at is right, okay, just play back this past week. What are the kind of things that are repetitive? What things were actually draining me this past week? Can I automate that? Right? Can I delegate that? Or is it something that I'm actually not utilizing? Then in that case, yes, I'm still doing it, but is
Yeah.
it moving the needle? If not, then I delete it. So automate, delegate, or delete. Right, that awareness. But automation is one of the areas that we can actually sort of like put into play to create that white space, right? Because for the most part, burnout, you find you do some repetitive stuff that we can actually sort of like get off our plates so we can create that white space and eliminate a burnout, right? And the R in there is all about refinement.
Mm.
I love this because, I did a workshop not very long ago, a couple of weeks ago, in the case of morning system, and the people that attended the workshop, we were building a stack.
Right.
So at the end of the workshop, we had built a morning stack, um, and that is very individualistic to each and every one. So each and every one's morning stack was very, very different,
Right.
and that is the beauty about it. It's about refinement, making it your own, right? Because what might work, say for you, Ramon, in the case of the morning, say for an activator, for instance, for me, say, or maybe amplification, say to get into that state, maybe jumping jacks for me works good.
Right.
Somebody might be like maybe music, right? Before they go into that high stakes meeting. So about finding what works for you. And that's where refinement comes in, making it
Mm.
your own, because there's no cookie cutter solutions because everybody's different.
Right.
And that's the beauty about Operator's Edge is not so much about, yes, we have frameworks, but at the same time, it's all about owning and refining and making it your own.
Mm.
It's more about a lifestyle, right? So we're not restricted. It's all about eliminating and just leaving those few things that are sort of like pushing you towards a trajectory
It
of
actually
actually where you
moves
want to
the
get to.
needle. Yeah, the things that actually move
Absolutely.
the needle. Yep.
Absolutely. Right. So that is refinement. And the E in the builder is all about, in there is all about execution. Because you can
Mm.
have all the energy, you can have the great vision, you can have
Yep.
all the systems, but if you don't execute,
Don't execute.
nothing happens. Yep.
Nothing happens. I consider it like cooking. Like you could have an ingredients list. You could know the temperature to cook the meat at. You could know everything about why you need to put the salt in before you put the pepper in. All that's cute until you put fire on the stove and cook. You're not getting a meal
Exactly.
until you start cooking. And you're never going to figure out what needs to be done until you put it on the fire and feel the intensity of actually executing on what been envisioning, right? And that's really where the confidence comes in, because once you can cook a couple of times and you feel comfortable of the execution that you've done, it really adds fuel to your fire to keep executing, because and sometimes you fail, you could just burn the pot up, but at least you know where you fail. I love the builder framework for many reasons. One, that's the area of the design build process that I am in, because I'm a construction manager, so I'm actually the person executing the build, right? So I love the builder. I love what you say about eliminating systems or approaches that are not necessary. One of the greatest builder, Elon, if I was listening to a different podcast, I'll plug them right now, called Founders, and they were talking about Elon's systems and processes. And Elon loves to reason from first principle. What's first principle?
Absolutely.
If it's just a rule or it's just bureaucracy that why we're not doing it, we need to find out why we need it. And if we don't need it, eliminate it, right? And there are many cases along the way when he's building SpaceX where they're like, well, this isn't a spec. Okay, where's the spec from? It's from the naval processes, or it's from Air Force. Who in the Air Force wrote the spec? They're like, we don't know. He goes to the Air Force. It's like, this spec is like from the 1950s. We don't. All of these are just not processes we need anymore. Can we get rid of it? And they get rid of it, right? They're like, anything that's just not necessary, get rid of it. He when people saw him going to Twitter, and he'll do this intentionally. He intentionally eliminates things until he finds out what are the drivers, right? Because when you take over such an expansive organization, you don't know what's fat and what's muscle. And sometimes he's like, I know I'm going to eliminate something that isn't quite important, but I won't know it's important until I get rid of it, right? And so
Oh
he
yeah.
goes literally through the process of just get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of this. And then you find out this was really just fat. And this I actually need to keep, because if I don't keep this, it causes a knockdown effect of so many other things. So now I need to. So you see Elon in the press, it looks crazy. Like, why would you buy a company and just start firing and deleting stuff? But in his framework, which no one is like aware of when he's doing these things, is like, I need to just get down to the drivers and the needle movers, because that's where the the sauce is at. There's this concept called Pareto distribution, the
Yeah.
80-20 rule, right? Where if you have 10 things, only two things out of those 10 things give you 80% of the result. And that happens
Absolutely.
with everything. That happens with wealth distribution. That happens with heights of people. That happens with uh, uh, people working at work and productivity rates of people. There's, if you have 10 people, there's two persons who's moving 80%, and the other two per 80 people, or eight people are doing just 20% of the work, right? And so Elon understands that framework and he pushes hard. So I love how you really focus down on refinement, make it your own. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
because not everyone is going to be an Elon. You just can't, because you didn't grow up like him. You didn't have the same life story as that person, right? You may have more of an empathetic spirit to individuals than Elon may or may not have, right? And so you gotta eventually make the ingredients, like cooking, your own. Maybe you like a little bit more pepper in your pasta than
Yeah.
salt, right? But who's gonna know that until you start cooking? So that's why I love the execution part of it, right? Because your refinement is gonna be tied into your execution. You can't refine without executing. It's not gonna work. So kind of know
Absolutely.
you have this framework of being a builder, but there's this last framework, and it's called the leader. Tell me about the leader.
Yeah, the leader pretty much, that is pretty much, I think, the glue that holds everything together,
Mm,
right? As you indicated, I think the builder is great because it kind of builds a system. Like, say, the design part. The design part is all about
yeah,
there is plenty of templates, there is plenty of systems in there that we utilize. But yet, the key part is the refinement, just to pick out those ones that actually work for you.
right. Yep.
Yeah. Now going to the build to the to the last one we just
Yeah.
talked about, where the leader, right? The leader is all about. I use the core framework
Mm,
in the case of like teaching that to my clients, and core is all about the C is all about the connections we have, right?
mm-hmm,
Relationships are pretty much the glue, right? Relationships fuel everything, be it relationships at home, relationships in business,
mm,
relationships, whatever it is. I think we don't, I think, spend enough time talking about how that is actually key in holding
yep.
everything together. We cannot have business if we don't have proper relationships, right?
Yep.
Yet we tend to neglect that area. Right. So yeah, so we use the core framework, and the C is all about the connections you have. So what sort of connections do we have? Somebody once said, "We average the five people we spend most time with." So
Mm.
are we aware of that? Are the people we're connecting with, the people we're spending most time with, are they uplifting us or are they bringing us down?
Yeah, are they helping
Right.
your crime? Are they helping your
Exactly. Are they zapping your energy or uplifting
Yeah.
it? Right.
Yep.
Exactly. So think about it from that perspective as well. It could be that, if you're the smartest person in the room, then find another room because we have to keep on growing as well.
Right.
Right. So connections is the very first one. What sort of connections do we have around us? It takes awareness because at times we have to make that conscious, deliberate effort to be aware of that. Otherwise, we don't think about it and we end up drifting.
Right.
Right. Then the all is about openness. As a leader, you need to be open. Open not just for yes sayers, but also for naysayers. Listen to different perspectives.
Mm.
Are you open to criticism? Are you open to learning new stuff?
Right.
Because if you are a leader and think you know it all, right, then there is a limit to actually you can get. Talk about scaling. I'm talking about scaling here. Then you
Right.
can only scale so much,
Right.
right? So are you open to listen to other voices that might not be so much in tune with what you want to hear,
Mm.
but also with the voices that are in tune with you as well? But it's just about being open, right? In any relationship, it's about being open, not just in business, but also at home as well, right? Then the R in cool is all about responsibility,
Right.
right? Responsibility. There is the danger that we only take credit for the good stuff. What about if things go pear shaped, right? As
Yeah.
a leader, you need to take responsibility. Responsibility, not just in business, but also at home as well.
Of course.
That I own this, right? Yes, the good and also not so good. So take responsibility. And the E is all about the energy exchange. And this is very, very powerful for
Mm.
me because I found that this is something that I think cuts across everything when the energy comes to energy exchange. Because what sort of energy do you bring into a room when you walk into that room?
Yes.
And what sort of energy lingers when you leave that room?
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that awareness I think is very, very key because at times we don't think about it from that perspective about
Yes.
what do I bring to the table. When I walk into that room, what sort of energy am I going to bring? Right.
100%.
And when I leave that room, right, is the energy going to linger? Always, I'm just going to bring about relief that people go like, oh, actually, that somebody has left the room, and
Right.
wow, now we can sort of like have a great time. Do you zap the energy or do you energize the room? Right.
Yeah. No, I love that because there's so much. As you're speaking, I'm getting
Yeah.
goosebumps because there's so many examples of what you said that I've seen play out a lot of times in different ways. So I'm going to start from the builder. So, as a project manager, you are the leader of the project management team, right? You
Yeah.
have multiple subs. Your subs, the electrician, the carpenter, the plumber, right? The excavator, the landscape arch. There's so many people who basically are communicate to you. The accountant, like you are the Swiss Army knife of you need to know accounting. You're not an accountant, but you need to know accounting. You're not a lawyer, but the first root word of contractor is contract. Contract is your sword, right? And you are basically the CEO of that project. You're not the CEO of the company, but you are the person that is going to channel a lot of that information through to the person who's a specialized skill, which means at any time when you talk to anybody, you're not the smartest person because I'm not going to know electrical better than an electrician. I'm not going to
Yeah.
know plumbing better than a plumber, right? And so at every moment, you really have to listen and be open to hearing what your electrician is going to say versus what your plumber is going to say versus what your carpenter is going to say.
Yeah.
Synthesize that information and come up with a plan or a system or design a philosophy that is allow the sequence of their work to work as a beautiful orchestra, right? And they're waiting for your time. And your job as a project manager is to provide the sequencing and the timing of people coming in and out of the space while they're building, right? And the better you get at that is the more people respect you and respect your approach And the fact that you hear no one, most times when there's a divorce in a relationship, it's triggered by someone not hearing. They always say, I don't feel heard in the relationship, right?
Totally.
And your relationship is not just when you're home with your wife and your kids,
Yeah.
you have a relationship at work. And then there's different types of currency. Like people pay someone to do work. Well, a lot of times I can get things done that other project managers couldn't get done because you've built up a lot of social currency. Your ability to go to somebody and say, can you do this for me? And because of you as a person, they say, because of you, I'm going to do this for free and not charge you for it, even though it's not in my contract to do so, right? That's your social currency. Why? Because of the energy you bring into the room, right? I always think of a project manager as a captain on a ship. The captain on the ship is never going to know the engine better than the engine room mechanic. The job of
Exactly.
the captain of the ship is to listen to the pain points of the engine room mechanic and alleviate those pain points. The engine room mechanic comes to you, I need oil for the engine or we're going to have a problem. He's going to lose one of his rotors and then we're going to have a real problem. Now, if you dismiss the engine room mechanic, he doesn't feel heard. And as Murphy's Law would have it, the engine is going to fail at the moment you need it the most, right? And so you being able to resolve getting the oil to the engine room is going to resolve the problem of you getting to where you need to go with this ship, right? The next thing is, as a captain, there's going to be storms. There are going to be moments where no matter how well you plan out anything, there's going to be a problem, and your team is going to look to you as the captain to be the strong, decisive force to guide them through those problems. You start panicking, everybody's going to start panicking, right? Imagine being on a plane and you're going through turbulence and the captain comes out and is like, all right, take the hat off. I'm done. I don't know what to do. This is done. Guys, I'm done. I'm going to the bathroom. Figure it out, right? Like, you, if the captain pisses off, everyone pisses off because life is as such that it requires an ordering force,
Yeah.
right? The second law of thermodynamics is the law of entropy. Everything tends to disorder. Regardless of what you do, there's no combination of you being messy in your room that is going to provide an orderly room. You need to intentionally provide order, right? And so all of what you said in the leadership is so true because a lot of
Yeah.
the times I've run and done many projects and people would say like you're very young for the work that they give you to manage, right? But it's understanding, and I've seen this so many times. There'll be guys who know more than me as a project manager, but the trades would still come to me about it because it's perspective and perception, right? I have my own perception of something, but what's this person's perspective? And a lot of times people only focus on their perception of the problem, right? They only focus on what they're seeing. I need to get this done because the client's on my back. Okay, that's your perception. What about the electrician's perspective? His perspective is I need to do this right and do it
Yeah.
quality wise because if I don't do it right, I'm going to be doing this over again. So you come, just get it done, get it done, get it done. And he's like, I can't get it done because I need this. And you're like, I don't care, just get it done. The moment you do that and you pass on that energy of just get it done, I don't care of about the quality of getting it done, it's going to translate through everything in your project. No, if the person comes to you, I can't because I need this, and you get them this, then they get it done. You get what you wanted, and you still keep the quality high of what they and they know that you're hearing what they're saying, and they know that they can influence your decision by because of the fact that you're willing to listen to them. And so many times on my projects, I've stop catastrophes from happening, cost to the client, cost to the project, because I'm willing to listen to someone else's perspective. So I love that framework of being the
Yeah.
leader and what it stands for and how you bring this all together. So now, once you have this framework, and it's such a beautiful framework, What are the things that you see that people usually have a hard time out of these four really accomplishing? Like, what do you find majority of your clients are just built up data? Let's talk about like the Pareto distribution, right? Where do people usually like get stuck on with this framework most times?
Yeah, for the most part, I think most people are aware of most things. Maybe go like they were like, right, I don't have the energy, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I just need to work on that.
Hmm.
I'm burnt out. I'm burning out. I don't have time to spend time with family. I want to spend time with family. I just don't have at that time. Um, Clarity of vision at times people would have so sort of an idea of exactly where they want to go.
Yeah.
But I think one of the biggest problem would be having those personal systems,
Mm.
right? It's always about we in this hustle culture, right? But going to that next level isn't really built on more hustle. It's about
Right.
being a stronger operator,
Mm.
right? And being a stronger operator is about having those systems. Like that design piece, I think, is really, really key. That's been a saving grace, I think, for a lot of high performers.
Yeah.
Some doing great, right? Even on paper, as I indicated, but it's all based on just the grind, that hustle,
Right.
putting in all the hours. But putting in those hours, then you find you sacrificing other things that really matter in life,
Mm.
and that's not really success. Success, it's not really success if it's costing you everything else,
Mm.
right? But how is it that you can have that 360? So I think it all comes down to that design or coming onto the systems or the builder.
Yeah.
How is it you can have systems? Because with systems, you also in check of all those areas.
Yeah.
So you can plug it. As opposed to being reactive, you are more responsive
Mm.
to the situation. Like in my case with my clients, we have, say, in the case of like a wig playback, say, one of the systems we have or tools we have in the case of, say, toleration audit. What did I tolerate this past week that was actually draining me? So you understand that,
Yeah.
right? Was I present? Would I want a check in on a Thursday? Would I want to be led by me this week?
Right.
Right? Just that simple line. It doesn't take very long to do that, but then you have that system in place. So these are kind of systems you plug in, which don't take long.
Mm.
Like say the morning system to prime your energy. It's not so much about the energy, but having a system in place,
Your morning
like that
routine.
workshop had. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have that system. It just takes you 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
But guess what? It gives you like all day energy.
Right.
So it's actually worth doing. So yeah, so the thing I've found is more about having those personal systems. There's so much focus on the hacks,
Mm.
the tools, the strategies. I've been part of a lot of masterminds and coaching programs. It's all about
Right.
this hack, this tool, but we neglect the very operator behind it all, right? When the operator is upgraded, then those levers, those are just levers, the tools and everything. Then
Right.
they're better operated.
No, I love it because
Yeah.
one of the things I love about your leader is the energy,
Mm.
and I am also a part of other training programs outside of
Yeah.
work. Just something that I join because you always, like you said, you don't want to always be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
And one of the frameworks from this coaching program called Vertical Motion that I made is the difference between, say, a mid-level manager and an executive is executive presence. What's executive presence? Your how you show up in a room, how you communicate in a room, how you
Yeah.
do you have gravitas, which means like when you walk into the room, do people feel that you're in the room? Does your presence make an impact in the room? Or you're just furniture inside the room? Like no one would know if you're here or not here, right? And when you leave the room, on top of that, because I always say in the podcast, and I love adding physics to metaphysics, basically. So, like in the physical realm of physics, the universe is infinitely growing in all directions, right? which means wherever you stand is the center of the universe, right? Because no
Yeah.
matter how you run to each edge, it's infinitely growing. You're infinitely in the middle of it, right? Which means at the center of the universe, you could be one or two things. You could be a black hole or you could be a sun. The difference between a black hole and a sun is one sucks and one gives energy. A black hole takes energy. Physically, it just takes any universe that has a black hole in it is just never a good universe, right? A sun, like what we have in our universe, things gravitate around it, and off its energy, life comes, right? We at Earth is perfectly away from the sun that life can be on Earth, right? But if it was not a sun, it was a black hole, there wouldn't be any life on Earth. So at the center of our universe, the sun is giving energy, and out of its energy, other energy can spring. So as a leader, your energy, how you show up, is important. When people go to a stage show, and if there's a performer, part of the reason you pay your money to go to the stage show and not just listen to the record over your phone is because you want to see the person, you want to see how they show up on stage, how they show up for you, right? And so it's just knowing that is super important to, like you said, cultivate and capture those energy systems and being a true leader. And you can't have that energy without priming yourself the right way. You just can't.
Exactly.
You just can't. You can't get to that end part of providing or feeding into other people's cup if you don't feed into your own cup, because that's how you get burnout. So I just once I went through your framework, I'm like, this is a complete package. It's not just about being good at work. It's about being good at being a good human being. And overall, you can see two different operators. Like a chief executive officer is given the role to help people execute on frameworks. This way is a chief executive officer, right? An officer provides law and order. An organization is a group of people organized, right? And Elon and Jeff show up in different ways, right? Elon is like, I'm gonna go and just hyper focus on getting results in this one avenue.
Yeah.
And it's great, and he does a good job of doing it, but he does burn a lot of bridges along the way. He also doesn't he has a kid that doesn't like him at all, right? And doesn't want to even associate with him, right? He has multiple baby mothers who are not happy. Like he's burning bridges everywhere else, and he's excelling over here. And then you look at someone like, say, Jeff Bezos. He also owns a space company. He also built an amazing company in Amazon, right? But he just recently got married. He enjoys his life, right? He's also in better shape than Elon right now. Like you can see that he has a more holistic framework. And people say, okay, well, Elon has way more billions. At the point of a billionaire, you are the difference between 100 billion and 50 billion in the space of or living life is still more money than you could ever spend in your lifetime. So you're still in the same realm. Like you've passed million year status at this point. So to me, what is it that the life you want to live? You really want to be the billionaire who's always stuck behind the desk, stressing about something, your family is in chaos, you're in chaos, your health is failing, or you want to be the billionaire who can enjoy life in its totality, like, and so you can see there's a framework difference between the two. So if someone wants to work with
Absolutely.
Richie and want to straighten out their framework, straighten out their operating edge, how can they reach out to you? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think the best way to reach me is LinkedIn.
Okay.
LinkedIn is my main platform, and I pretty much respond to all the messages there.
Mhm.
Yeah, LinkedIn, and I do I do post on Twitter as well, or X.
Gotcha.
I love writing. I'm a writer, so I love writing. So that's the reason I think LinkedIn and X or Twitter happen to be my default kind of platforms.
Gotcha. And it's your full name on LinkedIn, right? There's no okay, perfect.
Absolutely, yeah. Just Ritchie Nkana.
Well, listen, Richie, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. This has been a phenomenal conversation. I just love the framework that you have here, and I wish more people take it on and learn from it. So I appreciate you taking the time to come on the pod.
Ramon, I really appreciate it. Time has just flown by. It's unbelievable that it's already
Right?
been off an hour. It's been a great conversation. Really, thank you for having me be on, coming on.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, brother. Keep safe, all right? And keep doing
Awesome.
your frameworks.
Thank you.